Okay, so let's start with some general introduction. Yes, with the poetry section, we will kind of go in a circle, or in two circles. One is that last semester we end with the 19th century, and this semester we start with the Middle Ages, and then we'll move forward from century to century to the 19th century. But today, when we talk about ballads have been compiled and discovered and compiled pretty much in the 19th century. Okay, so in the last week of our poetry session, we'll be reading La Belle Dame Sans Mercy, the beautiful lady without pity, without mercy, and this is a ballad written by John Keats under the influence of medieval ballads. So this is how the ideas about love will be one dominant theme of our class, and then it will start with medieval ballads, and then it will end with, in our semester, it will end with the 19th century. Okay, in the poetry section, but in the drama section, we'll move on to the beginning of the 20th century. Yeah. Okay, so talking about medieval ballads, I want to start with the lyrics. It's a pity that we last semester I introduced quite a few songs, but we didn't have time to play the songs in class, because I would like to give you more time to do the discussion. So we didn't really play the songs. But one thing that we should all keep in mind is that poetry is very close in nature to songs, and poetry usually originates in songs. Like traditional, the very early poems, like ballads or the early lyrics, like 什么诗经秦风, a lot of them can be sung. So the rhythm in poetry is really similar to the rhythm in songs. Okay, so that's why I want to start with a very simple lyrics, Western Wind, popular in the Middle Ages, and you can see how it is. It can be sung, and if you check on YouTube, you can find really a version of it's being sung, and then you can also find that it's similar to some traditional Chinese poems. Okay, and then we'll talk about the interesting stories presented in the ballads. Okay. Okay, this is Western Wind. You have it on your handout. It's not available in the textbook. We'll be dealing with three poems: Barbara Allen, Sir Patrick Spence, and Western Wind today. And only Sir Patrick Spence is in the textbook. Okay, the other two are in the handout. Okay. Western Wind, when will thou blow? I think right away you see that there are some ancient forms of English. I think thou is pretty much known, even in modern English. When we see thou, we know that, it's a more ancient form of English, but it's understandable. Okay, but very soon when you get to read Sir Patrick Spence, you really get to see examples of medieval English. Okay, so let me read the poem first. Western wind, when will thou blow? The small rain down can rain. Sometimes we find some syntax, sentence structures which are ungrammatical for us. But I think it reflects the way the ancient people or the people in the Middle Ages speak. So I think that's one thing. And also, like with traditional poems, sometimes the rhymes are not consistent. Like here we have rhymes on the second and the fourth line, but not all the way through. Okay, So when will thou blow the small rain down can rain? Basically it means that the speaker is asking when the spring will come. So the western wind will blow the small rain, not the heavy rain. I guess nowadays we are approaching spring. So it's exactly about maybe the same season when this poet or this speaker asked the western wind to come. One thing I cannot explain very clearly is the idea of western wind. Usually we associate western wind with autumn. Okay, and then dongfeng with spring. But I think this should have something to do with the geographic differences. But here, western wind means the wind that brings spring, the wind that's blowing in spring, the wind which is gentle, the wind that brings small rains but not torrents or blizzards in winter. Okay, Christ, if my love were in my arms and I in my bed again. Okay, so very simple, 4 lines, expressing 2 basic human needs. One is good weather, and the other is comfort and love. Comfort and love. I guess that's all what you need, right? Now, when the winter is so cold, you look forward to having spring to come, and whatever love you have, you hope to be with him or her, or with it, like your puppy, your cat, okay, and then be in your bed, to be comfortable, So this is what really is interesting about some traditional poems. They are very simple, but then they express the needs that we still feel, that we also feel very directly. Okay, so that's the idea here. What a traditional lyrics is like, and I included one. 南风歌. Don't ask me who wrote it or where it's from, etc. I think that it's from early Qing dynasty, but that's all I know from the title. I'm no specialist in Chinese literature, but it's interesting that the language is also very simple. The needs expressed in this poem, is also very common, or you can even say universal. Like 南风之熏兮，以解无名之韵兮. I believe 南风 suggests warmth. Okay, so that the people will not feel angry or will not feel anxious. 南风之时兮，以复无名之才兮. Okay, I did have a chance to check what fu means. Do we have any people from Chinese department? Or does anyone of you know? Okay, but I think it should suggest something about wealth. How with warm weather, the people can plant their seeds and then they can expect to gain wealth. So basically, I think what is expressed here, one is the need of good weather, good environment, and the second is the need of love. The need to be in pleasant mood, to be comforted, or to satisfy one's physical, sexual needs. Okay, so all of these are the common human needs, very frequently expressed in traditional poetry or really classical, ancient poetry. Okay, I just want to use this as a kind of a prelude before we move on to the ballad. And when we move on to the ballad, and after I explain some details, I'll throw at you some questions. I'm not going to let you just sit there idle, listening to me. I'll throw at you some questions about Sir Patrick Spence, and then we'll take a break for you to get into the groups, discuss the questions, and then we'll get back to the whole class discussing Sir Patrick Spence. Okay. Okay, ballads. Ballads 民谣. But actually, the word ballad evolves. Its meaning evolves in time. When we talk about ballad as a narrative song, this definition got popular only in the 19th century. Before then, ballad pretty much is just a song. Okay, and nowadays, 我们讲民谣风, some ballads may not involve a story. Okay, so be careful about this. Here, our definition of ballad is a narrative song. And also it's today we're discussing folk ballad, but not literary ballad. La Belle dans Some Mercy is a literary ballad. In other words, ballads become so popular that the poets, the literary writers, imitated to write some literary ballads. But today we are talking about the medieval folk ballads. Okay, in the United States, during the frontiers period, 就是垦殖期, there were also a lot of ballads in the 18th and 19th century. And if you check online, you find out that some of the ballads, like Barbara Allen, was also popular on the American frontier. So in other words, I think that ballads are really spread around, and sometimes they are not really limited to region. Some were limited to regions, different regions, but some can follow the people to move from place to place. Okay, and because in the medieval ages, most people are illiterate. Okay, you know that the medieval ages is pretty much Middle Ages or medieval period is a time of Christianity. And the people who know how to write are pretty much the religious people, the monks, the priors, etc. And most of them just transcribe biblical scripts or dramas. Okay, and the people's literature gets to be orally transmitted. Okay, so that's one characteristic of medieval ballads, that it's usually it's being orally transmitted from the 12th century, 1200, from 1200, the year 1200 to the year 1700, and then it gets written down first in the 18th century, and then in the 19th century. And Francis James Child's the English and Scottish popular ballads has been the first definitive text. I think there are 5 volumes. Okay, so later on when I said Child's ballad, it doesn't mean 小孩的民谣. It means this person who went everywhere to collect the ballads and write down and keep the ballads and compile them into 5 volumes. And it is this collection that influenced a lot of literary writers in the 19th century to continue to write ballads, to use the form to write some ballads. Okay. And here are some of the characteristics. As I said, ballads is a narrative song, so it tells a story. And I think partly because of the nature of oral literature, that you have to tell the story in a very interesting way. Unlike the modernist literature like Arabic, which is very descriptive, describe the images, the atmosphere, the sentiment in detail, because those works are for us to read. Okay, you can take your time to read it slowly, but when you listen to the story, you want to listen for the action and dialogue. Okay, so I think that's one thing that makes oral literature very different from written literature. Okay, so there is this emphasis on action and dialogue. And then the metrical structure is very simple. Okay, sometimes it rhymes on the 2nd and the 4th line, and it's usually quatrain or sorry, I forgot how to say that. Trimeter or quadruple. Okay, in other words, 三音部或者四音部一行，然后 usually four lines, one stanza. So the poetic structure, metrical structure of a ballad is very simple, and it's usually sung to a model melody. In other words, sometimes the same melody can be matched with different ballads. The same song. Okay, and the song can be very easy. With simple melody. So that a lot of people can sing it. Okay, usually it's anonymous, and because of the oral transmission, again, there are really different versions, and that makes the ballads also interesting. Sometimes the story itself is interesting, but then also the different versions of the stories can be interesting. Okay, so these are the two things which are very special about ballads. And then later on, when we have this genre, literary ballads, in the 19th century, then people start to talk about traditional ballads as folk ballad or broadside ballad. Broadside ballad means that the ballads that get transcribed on one side of the paper, or that's really just about common matters like love, religion, simple stories. Now, literary ballads can have very more complicated stories or complicated ideas. Okay, but I think the traditional ballads sometimes also involve very complicated ideas. And today, our title, let me show it to you again. What I want to point out is that there are something to examine, something to discuss behind its apparent simplicity. Ballads and lyrics. Maybe I should use it there. Behind their apparent simplicity, there are something to examine. In the case of lyrics, I guess that's not our focus today. But to go further, maybe we can try to understand how some traditional lyrics express the common sentiments, across the nations, across the different continents, etc. Okay, but in terms of ballads, like Sir Patrick Spence and Barbara Allen, what I want to find out, what I want us to find out, is how the stories are just apparently simple. How actually there are some spots which are intense, and also which are worth discussing. Also because the stories sometimes have gaps, so sometimes you can have your imagination, you can have your creativity in trying to fill out the gaps, and this is also something you could consider doing, for the workstation, teach and learn workstation. In other words, you can write your own ballad, following the basic skeletal story of the traditional ballads. You can fill out the details, and that's one possibility, presenting the poems from another perspective, or with another medium. Okay. Okay. Let me move on. So to look at the literary elements of ballads, the first thing to examine is the plot. Just now I talk about the ballads in terms of its elements which make it a ballad. Okay, but another way to look at it is to look at the literary elements more specifically. For instance, the plot. It usually does not have an introduction. Okay, it usually use very simple ways of narration, but it starts in medias res. Okay, just right in the middle of the story. Okay, and it presents monologue, dialogue. Usually there is no narrative comments, narrator's comments, like A Rose for Emily, or Araby has a lot of narrative comments. But here in ballads, we don't have narrator's comments. And then there are a lot of repetitions and refrain. Remember, ballads are to be sung. So like our songs today, they are usually refrains or what we call chorus. Okay, and the tune, the melody, the rhythm are simple. This is what I wanted to say. There are usually 4 lines, and then between tetrameter and trimeter. Tetrameter is 4 iambic beats, and trimeter 3 beats. Okay, 3 syllables, 3 beats. Okay, and then there are usually some archetypal symbols. Archetypal symbols means like in Arabic, when we look at a rustic bicycle, we need to understand its symbolic meaning in its context. And that's not a universal symbol, okay? But we have some symbols which evoke some common human sentiments, and those are frequently called archetypal 原型, archetypal symbols. For instance, the sea. The sea can make us feel like is where we come from and where we'll go to. Sea and earth, both. Okay, earth is also maybe where we come from and where we'll go to. Mother Earth. Okay, and sea, which nourishes life. Okay, and if we use blood red, then definitely it suggests something gory or something cruel. Okay, green leaves suggesting life, yellow leaves suggesting maybe autumn, okay, or the decay of life. Okay, so these symbols or images used in a ballad, you can easily understand what they mean because they are archetypal symbols. Okay, so these are the features